Hello and welcome to the Data Privacy Lawyer. My name is Funmi Owolabi and I'm the principal attorney at the firm. Today's review, we're going to be looking at a specific privacy notice. So let's take a look. So this is a privacy policy and they've got it in different languages. The website uses various technologies, including third-party cookies and codes. So the cookie banner disappeared without me touching it, but we can see here that there's like a button where we can adjust our preferences. I'm just going to do that. So the thing I want to talk about today is you can see all of these are toggled on to green. Now, I've talked a lot about how geography really matters from a data protection standpoint. So in some geographies, organizations have the opportunity to opt consumers in to certain types of processing activities. So we're going to go through each processing activity here today. Let's talk about the description and then we'll talk about the activities. When you visit the website, which I'm doing right now, they may store, I'm not sure who the they is. I think some clarification about who is the they. I presume it's this organization, but that might be valuable. They may store or retrieve data about you using cookies and similar technologies. Let me just scroll up. Okay, so it is clear that it's they. I think that it's really important for businesses to be very specific about who the data controller is and who exactly it is that is going to process the information. Now, from this storage preference center, we can see it says store, right? Now, on its face, a lay person, like not a privacy lawyer, might understand store as just an action. But in the data protection space, we consider this a processing activity. A processing activity is any operation or set of operations on personal data, to include storage. If you view personal data, you're processing it. If you store personal data, you're processing it. If you extract personal data, you're processing it. So whoever the they is going to store or may. It's not in every instance, but we know here from looking that I've actually been opted into everything. So this is not a matter of may. It's a matter for me personally as a US resident. It's definite. So they may store or retrieve data about you, meaning me, Funmi Owolabi, using cookies and similar technologies. Cookies may be necessary for the basic functionality of the website as well as other purposes. I want to highlight this because I think it's valuable to articulate this in the preference center so that consumers can understand what these other purposes constitute. Although they're listed here, if you've looked at any of my cookie reviews, you'll know that I walk step by step on what consent management needs to look like from a data protection standpoint. Now, one of the key factors that is always missing from any of my reviews is geography. I don't have any clues to that, but one of the clues I can definitely state here is that I've been toggled into things like targeted advertising. Now, in other geographies, that would not be acceptable, but because I'm a US resident, I've been opted in and I now have the opportunity to opt out, which is what I'm doing here. Now, something that I don't talk about on my channel a lot is the definition of consent. Consent under the data protection law has certain factors that businesses have to meet in order to get true consent. And maybe I will start doing some reviews on the channel about what a true consent looks like, because I think it's valuable for businesses to understand what it is that they're capturing. There are laws on how personal data can be used. So there is a specific cadence outside of any traditional privacy policy that businesses need to take into consideration. It's not just about the privacy notice on your website. It's about the flow related to your obligations under the data protection laws, including cookies. So whenever I do the cookie reviews, I always opt out, but I don't spend a lot of time on the preference center. But because we're looking at it, I thought it would be valuable to do so. So we've got the essential ones. I had originally highlighted as other purposes. And unfortunately, when I landed on this page, the banner that we saw at the bottom, it disappeared too quickly, so I couldn't look through it. But one of the values I think that businesses should take into consideration is whatever language exists in your banner should also exist in your preference center. You have the option of disabling certain types of cookies, though doing so may impact your experience on the website. And then we've got a link to the privacy policy, which hopefully we'll have a couple minutes to look at. But essentially, I've opted out of all the cookies. Now, another thing that I'm planning to do on the platform and on my YouTube channel is to use a VPN, and we're going to experience websites in other geographies. And the reason why we're going to experience websites in other geographies is the data protection laws vary from geography to geography. And I use geography because some data protection laws apply specifically to a state. Some privacy laws apply to a region. Some apply to a country. And some apply to multiple countries. So we're looking at privacy on lots of different spheres, essentially. So I addressed that I was toggled in and I had the opportunity to opt out, which I just did. Let's talk about this button. Do not sell or share my personal information. Now, this also gives me another clue that this organization definitely processes the personal information of US residents, because this is a specific requirement under US state privacy laws. I mentioned geography earlier. Geography influences what the responsibilities are of a business. The business doesn't just have obligations in the geography where it's headquartered. So, for example, if you're headquartered in the District of Columbia, your obligations under the data protection laws may expand outside of the district, even though that's where you have registered your legal entity with the state. So this is a requirement in the United States. It may be that if you're viewing this video and you're located in the European Union, there may be websites that you interact with that don't have this type of language because it's not required in that geography. So when we look at privacy, we're not just looking at where we're located. We're looking at what our responsibilities are based on the thresholds dictated in other geographies, right? If I, Funmi Owolabi, have a business and I am selling products to European Union residents, right? I'm collecting their information to sell them a product. Although I am physically located in the United States, my responsibility to those EU residents is not reliant on US state laws, because the personal data is coming from Europe. I need to take a look at what Europe dictates, and I need to adhere to that through my business in the States. Let's save this. Let's talk about this. I talked about geography. You can see that this particular organization has a privacy policy addendum for California, and then they also have a separate one for the People's Republic of China. Now, I can give some thoughts on why this may be. Every geography has its own data protection law. One of the more restrictive data protection laws comes out of the People's Republic of China. So if a company meets the thresholds there, they may consider creating a different privacy policy or privacy notice to address their processing activities there. And that's very, very important. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time to go through the notice today. If anybody is interested in me going through provision by provision, let me know in the comments and I will definitely consider it. I hope you enjoyed my review of what's taken into consideration from a privacy perspective. If you have any comments or questions about my review, leave them below and I will see you in another review.